Long ago, in the great land of Egypt, the people of Israel lived in deep suffering. They were not free, they were slaves. Every day, from morning until night, they worked under the burning sun. They carried heavy stones, built cities, and served the Egyptians without rest. Their cries rose into the heavens, but their chains remained. The king of Egypt, called Pharaoh, was powerful and proud. He feared the Israelites because they were growing in number. He worried that one day they might rise against him, so Pharaoh made a cruel law. He ordered that every baby boy born to the Israelites must be killed. Mothers cried in secret, fathers lived in fear. Darkness covered the land. During this terrible time, an Israelite woman gave birth to a baby boy. She looked at him and knew he was special. She hid him for 3 months, protecting him with all her strength. But when she could no longer hide him, she made a small basket from reeds and covered it with tar so water could not enter. With tears in her eyes and faith in her heart, she placed her baby inside the basket and set it gently on the river Nile. She trusted God with her child. The baby's sister watched from a distance. In the shadows of a humble home, a mother's love faced a cruel decree. She held her son one last time, a silent prayer whispered in the dim lamplight. That same day, Pharaoh's daughter came to the river. She saw the basket among the reeds and asked her servant to bring it. When she opened it, she saw the baby crying. Her heart was filled with compassion. She knew he was an Israelite child, yet she chose to save him. The baby's sister came forward and offered to find a woman to care for the child. Pharaoh's daughter agreed, and so the baby's own mother was brought to nurse and raise him. When the child grew older, he was taken into Pharaoh's palace. Pharaoh's daughter named him Moses, meaning drawn out of water. In a time of great danger, a Hebrew mother held her newborn son close, hiding him from the world to save his life. Moses grew up in the palace, surrounded by wealth, power, and learning. He was taught the wisdom of Egypt and lived as a prince, but he never forgot who he was. Deep in his heart, he knew he belonged to the people of Israel. One day, as Moses walked among his people, he saw an Egyptian beating an Israelite slave. Anger rose within him. Looking around and seeing no one, Moses struck the Egyptian and killed him. He buried the body in the sand, but the truth soon spread. Pharaoh heard what Moses had done and sought to kill him. Moses fled Egypt in fear and ran into the desert, leaving his life as a prince behind forever. He traveled far and came to the land of Midian, leaving his past behind. There, he helped shepherd women at a well, standing against those who troubled them. He later married one of them, Zipporah, and found a home among her people. Moses became a shepherd, tending to his flocks in the quiet of the day. Years passed. The fire in his heart faded into silence, replaced by the rhythm of the wilderness. Moses thought his life would end in the desert, forgotten and alone under the vast sky. But God had not forgotten him. His journey was only beginning. Moses grew up in the heart of Egypt, a prince in the most powerful empire on earth, surrounded by luxury and wisdom. But his life as royalty would soon change, as a higher purpose began to call him toward the desert. Leaving the palace behind, he found a new life as a shepherd in the land of Midian, far from the throne of Pharaoh. One day, while tending sheep near the mountain, Moses saw something strange, a bush that was on fire, yet it was not burning up. A voice called out his name from the flames. God told him to remove his sandals, for he was standing on holy ground. God said he had seen the suffering of his people and had come to rescue them, choosing Moses to lead the way. Though hesitant, Moses accepted his mission. The shepherd would now return to Egypt as a deliverer. Guided by the eternal flame, the journey to freedom had finally begun. In the scorching heat of Egypt, a moment of injustice sparked a fire within Moses. Moses was afraid. He said he was not strong enough, not brave enough, not good with words. But God promised to be with him. God revealed his name as I Am and gave Moses signs and power. With God's power, the shepherd became a leader. God sent Moses back to Egypt with his brother Aaron to free his people. When Moses stood before Pharaoh, he spoke boldly. He said, "Let my people go." Pharaoh laughed and refused. He hardened his heart. Then God sent plagues upon Egypt. The river turned to blood. Frogs filled the land. Gnats and flies covered everything. Animals died. Painful boils struck the people. Hail destroyed crops. Locusts consumed what remained. Darkness covered the land for days. Still, Pharaoh refused to listen. Finally, God sent the last and most terrible plague. Every firstborn in Egypt would die, except in homes marked with the blood of a lamb. That night, sorrow filled Egypt. Pharaoh's own son died. Pharaoh broke. He told Moses to take the people and leave at once. The long years of bondage were finally over. With haste, the people gathered their lives. A nation began its journey toward the unknown. Moses led them into the heart of the wilderness. Before them lay a vast desert and a destiny yet to be fulfilled. The sand stretched to the horizon, a wide expanse of freedom and trial. The path was long, but the promise was certain. Behind them was the past. Before them, the dawn of a new era. Moses turned his face to the wind and walked on. The Israelites left Egypt in a great journey, carrying their hopes and their history toward a promised future. But Pharaoh changed his mind. His heart hardened. He unleashed his army to chase them down. The people reached the Red Sea and were trapped. Between the deep waters and the coming swords, fear filled their hearts. Moses cried out to God. In the roar of the wind, God told him, "Stretch out your staff over the sea." The sea split in two. Dry land appeared where waves once crashed, a path of miracle carved through the deep. The Israelites walked through safely, protected by the very waters that should have drowned them. When the Egyptian army followed, the waters returned in all their fury, destroying the pride of Pharaoh. The people were free. Their journey had just begun, but the chains of Egypt were broken forever. God led the Israelites through the wilderness. He provided food from heaven and water from the rock. On Mount Sinai, God gave Moses the 10 Commandments, teaching the people how to live in truth and justice. Moses guided the people for many years, even when they complained, doubted, and turned away. Moses prayed for them again and again. At the end of his life, Moses stood on a mountain and looked at the promised land. God allowed him to see it, though he would not enter. Moses died knowing he had fulfilled his mission. He had led his people from slavery to freedom. His life became a story of faith, obedience, and courage. And to this day, the story of Moses reminds the world that God hears the cries of the oppressed, that faith can change history, and that even one life placed in God's hands can transform generations. Moses lived 120 years. His eyes were not weak and his strength had not left him, but his time had come. God led Moses up Mount Nebo to the top of Pisgah, overlooking the land of Canaan. From that high place, God showed him the promised land in all its beauty, the valleys, the rivers, and the distant hills. God told Moses that this was the land promised to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Moses saw it with his own eyes, but God told him he would not cross into it. Moses stood quietly on the mountain, alone with God. There was no crowd, no trumpet, no celebration, just the servant of God and the voice that had guided him all his life. Moses bowed his head in peace. Then, according to the will of God, Moses died there on the mountain. No man was with him. No one saw the moment his spirit left his body. God himself buried Moses in a valley in the land of Moab, but no one knows the place of his burial to this day. The people of Israel mourned Moses for 30 days. They cried because a great leader had fallen. A prophet like Moses had never risen again, a man who spoke with God face to face. But after Moses died, something unseen happened in the spiritual realm. The body of Moses lay hidden, but the devil came to claim it. The devil accused Moses, reminding of his past sins, especially the time he killed the Egyptian. The devil argued that Moses belonged to him because of sin. But God did not allow this. An angel of the Lord, Michael the archangel, was sent by God to protect the body of Moses. Michael did not argue with the devil using his own authority. He did not insult him or boast. Instead, Michael stood firm and said, "The Lord rebuke you." By the authority of God alone, the devil was driven away, and Moses' body was kept according to God's will. The servant of God rested protected by heaven itself. Moses' journey was complete, from a baby hidden in fear, to a shepherd in the desert, to a leader who faced kings, parted seas, and spoke with God. Moses finished his race. He did not enter the promised land in the flesh, but his faith carried him into God's eternal rest. And generations later, Moses would appear again, not in weakness, but in glory, standing on another mountain with Elijah, speaking with the Messiah about the fulfillment of God's plan. In this sacred moment, the past and the future merged, confirming the promise made long ago. Moses, who once spoke to God in the cloud, now stood in the fullness of the light. His journey began in the humble reeds of the Nile, a child marked for death but chosen for life. God took a child meant to die and turned him into a deliverer. He was called from the fire of a desert bush to face the might of an empire. He stood before kings not with his own strength, but with the authority of the heavens. The staff in his hand became a symbol of a power far greater than any earthly crown. He led a nation through the depths of the sea, where waves stood still at the command of faith. Through 40 years of wandering, he was never truly alone, guided by a presence that never faded. On the heights of Sinai, he received the words that would shape the heart of humanity. It was there he learned that obedience matters more than power. He carried the weight of a people on his shoulders, sustained by a strength not his own. He gazed at the promised land from the heights of Nebo, a vision of the rest that was to come. And even after death, those who belong to God are not abandoned. He was watched over by heaven, laid to rest by the hands of the Almighty. The life of Moses teaches the world that God's plan is greater than our failures. And so the story of Moses ends, not in defeat, but in victory. He is remembered by earth, his name etched in the history of faith, and written forever in the plan of God. For the servant of God, death is but a transition to the eternal glory he once glimpsed on the mountain. Eternal rest in the presence of the King.